For Columbus, the discovery of the Americas is just the beginning. He knows that to really profit from the islands he discovered on his first voyage, he has to make a second journey back there as quickly as possible. It takes him just 6 months to put together a fleet of 17 ships for his second voyage to the New World. This time, it will be different. More a journey of colonization than discovery. And it's a much larger expedition with ordinary settlers, royal officials, and gentlemen adventurers hoping to make their own fortunes alongside Columbus. For this second voyage, the Atlantic crossing is smooth and quick, taking a more southerly route than the first voyage. After just 24 days, they arrive in the Caribbean and turn north again towards Hispaniola. They anchor offshore at night, expecting to see the settlers they left behind. But the shore remains dark and silent. The next day, Columbus lands on Hispaniola again. But he finds that not only has his camp been completely destroyed, but all 39 sailors have been slaughtered. It is Columbus's first clue that settling on Hispaniola is going to prove more difficult than crossing the Atlantic itself. Columbus needs to find a new location to build a proper permanent settlement that can feed and defend itself. So he takes his ships 70 miles east. Here, 1 year after the first voyage, Columbus builds La Isabela. Today, Isabela is a ghost town. This is all that remains of what was once an impressive town of 200 settlers' huts, a storehouse, and a church. The largest house was reserved for the governor, Columbus himself. But Isabela was doomed from the start. This was a death trap. There was no fresh water and little protection from the elements. Located on Hispaniola's north coast, the settlement took the full force of the Caribbean's worst weather. Its open harbor was totally unprotected. Worse still, the surrounding area was covered with swamps, the perfect breeding ground for killer diseases. Disease, bad weather, and hunger lead to the first signs of discontent among the settlers. La Isabela is clearly no place for a new city. Columbus travels deeper into the heart of Hispaniola. He heads for the region of Cibao, the source of the island's gold. But Columbus's decision to move inland will turn the native people against him. By now, the Taino realize that the Spaniards are here to stay, and they are clearly not gods, but greedy mortals. They start to fight back. Columbus responds with a fierce campaign of terror. The Taino are forced to submit to his rule. Columbus built a new city in the Cibao to stamp his victory on the land and people. In its time, Concepcion de la Vega will become the richest gold mining center in the Caribbean. It was here in La Vega that many of the nobles who had crossed the Atlantic with Columbus on the second voyage came to settle, driven by the ambition for wealth. The Indians had been happy with the tiny nuggets of gold they plucked from riverbeds. But the Spanish want everything they can get their hands on: nuggets, ore, and even gold dust. They stripped the island of its natural resources. Here at La Vega are the remains of the Spanish gold industry. In March 1496, confident that his colony had been thoroughly pacified, Columbus brought his second voyage to its end. He returned home a wealthy man, the admiral of the ocean sea. But from now on, the fortunes of his beloved Hispaniola will take a completely different course. 2 years later, Columbus returned to the New World on his third voyage. This time his main aim was expansion and exploration. He sailed as far as Venezuela, making him the first European ever to set eyes on the continent of South America. Then the third voyage turned north. In August 1498, Columbus returned to Hispaniola and founded a new capital. He called it Santo Domingo. From here, he became governor of the whole island, at the heart of Spain's growing empire in the Caribbean. But Columbus, the master of the sea, is no leader on land. Here, his navigation and sailing skills are of no use. He needs to be a leader of men. His approach will be brutal. Any dissent from either the Taino or Spanish is met with violence as Columbus rules by terror. The Plaza de Armas in Santo Domingo was the setting for many of Columbus's public mutilations. But turning his own people against him would prove to be his downfall. Eventually, a large group of colonists rebel and start setting up their own colonies in the mountains of Hispaniola. The alarmed monarchs send an envoy to report on the growing crisis on Hispaniola. The conclusion? Columbus is to blame. The man who discovered the New World is imprisoned in his own colony. He returns to Spain branded a criminal. But everyone has underestimated Columbus's ability to fight back. He will win one last chance to prove himself in the toughest venture of them all, his forgotten fourth voyage.